Fancy crafting video. This is going to cover the very early levels, level 1 through 15. I won't be doing a whole lot of demonstration with that because obviously I'm like level 70, but I'll be at least showing you some of the more important things that as a new crafter you should probably know about. So we're starting this inside my guild house, and a few things that you need to know right off the bat. First, there's this material supplier. If you're in a free company, chances are they have a material supplier, and if they don't, well, if they have a house, they probably have a material supplier. If they don't have a material supplier, then you can always buy an apartment and put a material supplier in it, or if they don't have a material supplier and your free company does have a house, you can buy a private room in the house and put a material supplier in it. These guys are very essential for low-level crafting because they have most of the materials that you're going to use all the way up to level 15. There are a few materials like all goat skins that you'll have to actually go out and get physically, but I mean, like, I can create a new character and level up from 1 to 15 using just the materials in the material supplier, so very important to know. And I still use the material supplier a lot even at level 70 because it's just a really easy way to get a lot of those resources. Another important thing is these crafting stations here. They give you a small amount of crafting points, which are kind of the fuel for all of your crafting abilities. It's not a whole lot, and it only works on items that are level 50 and under, so definitely not of use to high-level crafters, but it is a bonus at least, and you know, especially if you're leveling up, trying to level up quickly, you want all the bonuses you can get. Last but not least, our little pumpkin here is empty, so I've got to replace it, but your guild may have some, I call them furniture foods basically, because that's what they are. They're placeable foods that you can place as furniture that anybody that has access to the house can use. So like anybody in my free company can come in and have some pumpkin soup. We have to replace it every now and then, but definitely see if your guild has crafters already, see if they can make something for you to use, because I don't know, it's any bonus is a good bonus, and that pumpkin one's actually a really good bonus, so especially for low levels. Definitely not as useful for high levels, but you know, whatever. So that's all I wanted to cover out of the guild house. So let's look at some other things. Since we are in the area, we'll go take a look at the market board. Actually, no. I'll take that back. Let's continue on with the materials since we're on that subject already. So, in addition to the material supplier, there are also materials you can get elsewhere. Specifically, each of the beast tribes supplies certain materials. And so knowing which beast tribe supplies which materials helps to kind of streamline your crafting, especially on some of the larger servers. You see people price gouging for common items like velveteen or something like that. Like, yeah, you could pay 1,000 gil per undyed velveteen or whatever, or you could go to the Sylphic vendor and buy it for like 100 gil. the Beast Tribe vendors are important, mostly because they sell the materials at less than the cost of the material plus the shards to make it. And that's really where you're saving a lot of money, is the material plus shards cost. Because certainly you could go out and mine the stuff and make it yourself for free, right? But you know, you could go and buy the raw materials even to make it, but you end up usually paying more just for the shards to make it than you do if you go to one of these vendors and buy it. So this one is the Sahagin. They sell a lot of culinary and stuff. I'll show you what I mean here. Yeah, so they've got night milk, they've got some flour. This is all fairly low level stuff, but it's stuff that, like olive oil and cinnamon, I think, are the two main ones that are used in a whole lot of recipes, even at higher levels. So you want to keep these guys in mind, because these are also things like cinnamon on my server. It's 4 gil here, or you can go to the market board and spend 400 gil per cinnamon instead. So it depends on the local economy whether it's worth your trip or not, but I think on most servers it's probably going to be worth your trip. So the Sahagin sell culinary and stuff. The kobolds, let's see, where's that? Overlook. The kobolds and Camp Overlook sell a lot of alchemy stuff. So I'll show you where they are in a second too. Okay. So yeah, these guys sell a lot of alchemy stuff. All goat horns is the big one. That's like 90% of what I buy here. I also buy vitriol here a lot. Bomb ash, kind of. Beastkin and scalekin blood you can usually get for cheap off the market board. But it's mostly the alt goat horn, for horn glue specifically. So that's one of my guildies. Didn't want him to think I was ignoring him, so. Alright, so the next important one is the Amalja, and they are near Little Alamigo. And all of these spots are, you want to be level 40 in a combat class. Well, you have to be level 40 in a combat class to unlock all of these vendors. So if you can't do it early on, don't sweat it, but just kind of keep that in mind. Maybe get some of your guildmates who do have level 40 in a combat class to go here and buy stuff for you even. It's also worth pointing out, I mean, like I said, like that cinnamon that was like 400 gil a pop on the market boards, but is only like 4 gil on the Sahagin vendor or whatever. If it's 400 gil on the market boards, you can buy a couple stacks and throw them up on the market boards and make some money. Like, I do that with the Undyed Velveteen, actually, because it's always selling really, really high. It's used for the Clothcraft glamour prisms, so I mean that's a great way to make some money. This is another one because steel ingots are used for the blacksmithing prisms. So I mean, come here and spend what, about 500 gil per prism buying the steel ingots, and then turn around and sell the prisms for 5,000 gil a pop. That seems like a pretty good idea. So anyway, the Amalja sell most of the metal. Big point here is that they do sell iron ingots, whereas the material supplier at the FCs only sell iron ore that you then have to turn into ingots. And you notice that it's only 68 gil for an iron ingot when it takes about, I want to say, 2 fire shards to make an iron ingot. And those 2 fire shards are probably about 100 gil a pop. So 68 gil here, or 200 gil to make it yourself. Like, it's pretty pretty no-brainer type of math. Also of note, when you rank up with the Beast Tribe people, you get down to here probably just for opening up the Beast Tribe. You get all of the trade skill materials, but then as you gain ranks, you start unlocking these dies, and you also, in the very late ranks, you unlock things like minions and mounts and stuff like that. I haven't been quite as on top of my Amalja faction as I probably should be, but anyway, it's good to know if you're chasing mounts or you're chasing minions. This is another reason to come here. And these dies, the ones that are only available on the Amalja vendors, or on any of the Beast Tribe vendors actually, that they usually sell for quite a bit too. Like, you can probably sell that current purple for about 10 times what you're buying it for. So just nice little ways to make some extra money, especially if you're a new character and don't have a whole lot of money to invest in making money. So obviously I have a bit. So then the next one, since I keep talking about it, is the silk vendors. They're in East Shroud, where all the silks are, pretty much. So. At some point, I really need to get some good streaming software for my PC, because, I don't know, the PS4 doesn't look bad, but especially compared to my PC, it's not quite as good. And if you're used to PS4 and you're sitting here saying, wow, this is awesome, I don't even know what you're talking about, then you should join the PC Master Race. I'm just saying. No, I'm joking, but only kind of. Okay, so the Sylphs sell a lot of cloth stuff. The Undyed Velveteen is the big one here. Undyed Linen is also good because, well, the linen not so much, but the linen yarn is used in a lot of the higher level crafting still. Wildfowl feathers are another good one that's used in high level crafting. So yeah, good to know where all these are. the last one is also important for other reasons that I'll talk about in a minute. And that is the Ixal. It's North Shroud. Okay, so here's North Shroud, and the Ixal are in a nice little hidey hole, kind of in the middle of the zone. The reason that the Ixal are important is because they are the crafting beast tribe for A Realm Reborn. There's also a crafting beast tribe for Heavensward, which is the Mughals. Both of those are essential toward getting some of the in-game crafting items for their level bands. So, like, you get Ekatal sealants, which are used for a lot of the level 50 crafting and gathering items from the Ixal, and then from the Mughals you get Kupo nuts, which can be turned in for materials, glass fibers that are used in all of the level 60 crafting and gathering gear. So both are very important to remember. Okay, so the Ixal have a lot of wood. The walnut lumber is the most important one out of this because that's used for glamour prisms again. But they have a whole bunch of, up to oak at least. So that gets you up to like 35 before you have to actually start harvesting your own lumber, pretty much. And that's pretty good. Like, yeah, here you can see that they have the, not just the dyes, but they have a minion, they've got a mount, they've got a couple of furniture items, and that's pretty much the same with all of these tribes. So, alright, so that is the Beast Tribe vendors and where to buy stuff. I could go to the Heavensward ones, but I'm going to save that for a future video because this is really intended to be for like levels 1 to 15, so low level crafting, and we've already kind of exceeded the scope, so I don't want to exceed it anymore. So now we're going to go to the market board, and actually I'm just going to go to the one by my guild house. I should have put timestamps on my text so I could see how long this stream was going. So I've discovered that I can only edit a video that is less than an hour long, so I don't want to blow over my time. So we'll probably take a break here in a minute, but we'll go over the market board first. And then we'll get into actual crafting. And believe it or not, all this stuff is, you know, pretty important to know for a crafter. So it's related. It's not like, I don't know, wasted time or whatever. Alright, so doing a search for Taoist's shirt because I want to show you kind of how the market board works. Like, anybody can look at this and know, okay, so you type in what you're looking for, hit the search button, and it brings up what you're looking for. That's easy. I don't know why we're talking about the market board. So you go in here, and it's got 4 shirts for about an average of 850k, somewhere around there. It's probably more like 865, something, I don't know. But over here you have history, and this is something that a lot of people either they don't know about it or they're really too lazy to use it or whatever. But you click on the history and it shows you the last 20 sales, and there's important information all over this, because a lot of people, they'll look at that first page and they'll see, okay, so if I make a Dallas shirt, I need to sell it for $835,000 in order to be able to sell it. And so that's the price I'm looking at when I'm looking at the materials. Am I going to be able to buy the materials and make a profit, that kind of thing. But what you really want to look at, instead of what it's going for currently, is what it has gone for in the past. Because all of these on the history are actual sales. This is people that actually bought it. So, for instance, if those 4 shirts weren't there, maybe the only shirt that was there was the first person who made one on the server, who is still trying to sell it for like 10 million gil or whatever, right? And, well, actually, I think the first one sold for like 35 million gil. It was ridiculous. But anyway, so the first one on the server, 35 million gil, and it's the only one listed, and everybody's thinking to themselves, oh man, I can make it and sell it for 35 million gil, because that's what this one guy's shirt's going for, and it's the only one up there, right? But if you look at the history, no, you're not going to get anywhere near 35 million gil for that. You're going to get maybe, on a good day, probably about 2 million gil or so. That looks to be about the average here. So yeah, you might get 2 million gil for it. On the flip side, all these guys are selling for like 835, 840, stuff like that. They could probably be selling it for about 1.2 to 1.5 million, and it'll probably sell. In fact, if I put one up for 1.5 million right now, I can see that I'm selling, or people are buying 2 to 3 a day, 2 to 3 a day, going back for at least a week, which is important. You want to make sure that there are at least 10 sales per week. If there haven't been 10 sales, then it's still kind of indeterminate as to where the price is going to shake out. But if there have been 10 sales and 10 sales per week, then you know that there's a pretty solid average price of about 1.5 million here. So if I were to put one up for 1.5 million, then it's Friday now, it would probably get sold on Sunday. And all these other guys that are selling theirs for 850K are just kind of cheating themselves out of about 650K. So, you know, just it's good to have an idea for how the actual sale history is more important than the list price, because the sale history tells you what people are willing to pay for it, whereas the list price just tells you what people are willing to sell it for, and there's a big difference between the two. It also tells you how many of those shirts you can ignore. Like, for instance, if there were like 60 or 70 items being sold every week, then you could probably put it, you know, you could probably just pick the most expensive out of those 60 or 70 and list one for that. And it wouldn't matter if there were 60 or 70 items ahead of you, because those will all get sold and then yours will get sold. So, you know, you don't have to undercut people in order to sell stuff, is I guess what I'm getting at here. Alright, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we will come back and do some crafting.